Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Welcome back to the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network. Identifying places where government programs fall short is not hard, but finding practical solutions to those problems can be much more difficult. The IBM Center for the Business of Government is now seeking problem solvers. Here to talk about their new call for proposals is the center's executive director, Dan Chennick. Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Terry. Always great to talk with you.
Well, I know IBM has long been a sponsor of research that offers practical solutions for government problems. You've got a new call for research proposals that's out for 2025, 2026. Tell us about that. What are the main objectives of the research for this cycle?
Right. So thanks again for the opportunity to talk, Terry. The IBM Center for the Business of Government is an independent research organization within the IBM Corporation. We take a sort of evidence-based, research-focused look at problems affecting government leaders, and we identify our agenda by talking to government leaders about what are the problems that they need the most help with in terms of research, innovative thinking, new ideas, both now and in the future. So sort of say the next 5 years or so. We're not a futurist society, so we don't, those groups play a valuable role, but our focus is really on sort of, let's say, the next 2 to 5 years in terms of the results that we're trying to help government achieve, and then, setting the foundation for future actions. In order to produce our research agenda, we listen very attentively to what government leaders across the political spectrum and at the career level and also stakeholders are saying are the areas where research can provide the most value. And then we bring together a group of esteemed current, former government leaders, academic experts, nonprofit partners to curate a discussion of those topics. And then from there, we kind of refine the research agenda. And that refinement is what we just put out as our new call. When we put one of these out, we share it with the world. Any academic, usually university professors are our top audience who are teaching often in schools of public administration or public affairs, but can come from other parts of the university if they have an interest in supporting government research. We also partner with nonprofit partners, your former organization, the National Academy of Public Administration, among the foremost, and others, the Partnership for Public Service, the Senior Executives Association, the Shared Services Leadership Council, are some of the groups that we've partnered with over the years. So in sharing this new research call, we have identified 5 topics, and I can go over the 5 topics, Terry, if that works.
Yes, let's dig into the 5. And as you go, I'm really interested to hear if you've had conversations with the current administration about these 5 and how they align.
So I'll just give a general answer to that. The answer is it's very new. We're just really starting to get in touch, as it can be expected with the beginning of any new administration, with new leaders. And we have a number of initiatives that we're starting up that may be consonant with the interests of leaders coming in to take over agencies. And I'll talk about those as we go through the agenda as well. But we have stayed in touch with the career leadership at center of government agencies like OMB and GSA, as well as across the agencies. And importantly, I should note that our center's remit is federal, state, local, and international. So although we do more of our work for the federal government, because by nature of real estate, we're in Washington, all of our work has lessons learned that the federal government can take advantage of. We also do work at the state and local level and with other countries.
So let's dig into those 5 topics.
Yes. The first is multi-sector partnerships. And we use the word multi-sector very deliberately, as opposed to just public-private, which is sort of the traditional term. And this is to identify the fact that you've got partnerships that can involve industry in non-traditional ways. It can involve working with civil society or nonprofits. It can involve working with other levels of government, and that any sort of hard, large problem of national scope often requires collaboration across these kinds of boundaries. And there are very few rules. There may be some norms that have been set up around collaborative partnerships, and the Center's done some research on this. Brent Millward's done some foundational work with us, a great scholar on this topic. And we'd like to deepen our understanding to help the federal government work with other levels of government and the converse, and to identify ways that let's say we can have, if we're doing a report on how best to manage in the healthcare space, that we understand how best government can engage with the healthcare industry in that, not in a regulated sense, but more in a co-production kind of sense to deliver services in a multi-sector way. So that's topic one. And I'll stop for questions from you at the end of each topic. So feel free to jump in.
Well, I think the multi-sector approach is really interesting, and your point about few rules and some norms is going to come into practice as this administration is very focused on sort of pushing federal power back down to the states. So that will be an interesting one to follow
and
up
that's one of the topics that we may start to look into more. So previews are coming attraction.
Okay.
The second topic is what we called operational and financial effectiveness. And this is basically, people often talk about financial management and risk management, program delivery, service delivery. What we're looking for are how do you actually drive outcome-based results from the delivery of government programs, and how do you do so in a way that maximizes the return on investment across in the manner in which the program is delivered. So the Agile Government Center, for example, a partnership that we have with the Academy, is something that helps government identify what are ways to work in a more agile fashion with iterative feedback, small teams, cross-functional teams, et cetera. And we have a whole set of research that we've done together on that. That's an example of a methodology by which you would achieve greater operational effectiveness. You might imagine more outcomes-based contracting, another topic that we're looking at that the new administration has said they're interested in, as something where you can get faster results from contracted dollars without as much acquisition process necessarily, while maintaining program integrity. The use of technology to drive better addressing of fraud, waste, and abuse in benefit programs and making those operationally more effective, both to serve the vast majority of citizens who have legitimate needs from those programs, to deliver more their benefits faster and more accurately, and also to get ahead of those adversaries who would attempt to intercede and take money away from those programs, what people think of traditionally as fraud, but also looking at waste and, are there ways to improve that? So there are a whole set of activities around sort of how do you operate programs, how do you fund them, and how do you get better outcomes around that kind of wrap around that topic.
I'm speaking with Dan Chennick. He's the Executive Director of the IBM Center for the Business of Government. So what's topic number 3?
Topic number 3 is a technology topic. And this is, we talk about technology for delivery and efficiency. And this is where we think about AI, cloud computing, other types of emerging analytics technologies, as well as making sure those technologies are secure, not just because it's a good value in sort of technology management, but for the purpose of driving better outcomes. We call out healthcare and service delivery specifically in this request, and we're really looking at how can these technologies be used in a way that improves customer service, provides a better experience for citizens, enables government officials who may be working with, under resource constraints. That's certainly the reality of the environment that we've lived in for many, many years at the federal level, and certainly true now. How do you do that? How do you increase productivity of the government workforce using these technologies? So a whole set of activities around how does technology matter for better outcomes for citizens, small businesses, and others who rely on government.
I love that this is not just more efficiency, but really linked to effectiveness, kind of across all of these. Yeah. Here
we it's sort of there's a bit of overlapping, a Venn diagram with overlapping circles. There are 5 topics, so we think of this as the Olympic rings. So there's a I just made that up, by the way. But there are commonalities across the topics. In the technology area, we're really primarily interested in the efficiency play. But that has a strong relationship, as I said earlier, to the operational and financial outcomes and effectiveness in the last topic. So scholars can propose a topic that cuts across multiple topic areas. I'll talk about that at the end.
Okay, let's go on to 4 and 5.
4 and 5 are data and workforce. And so data, traditionally we've always had a research topic around using data to make better decisions. Now you've got, different ways that data can be brought together both through technologies and also through information sharing regimes, common operating pictures that can integrate data across, so you don't have to kind of go up and around silos to share data when you're dealing with like a multi-agency delivery like housing, which requires, the HUD, local level, community organization, et cetera. So how do those organizations share, especially in an environment where federal law can be somewhat outdated? The Privacy Act of 1974, if I do my math right, is 51 years old, and that governs a lot of the way that agencies still share data today. So how do you think about operating in those environments?
Right.
And then through all of these topics, a skilled federal workforce, and I'll add a skilled partner workforce, is important. The government does typically, 80% of technology is done through contractors. Many services are done through contracts. A service contract volume annually is somewhere north of $500 billion a year. So how do we make sure that the workforce that works with the government, as well as the workforce in the government, has the necessary skills to understand AI and data and effectiveness and efficiency, and how do you work together collaboratively, not just through traditional training, but through things like teaming activities, exchange programs, et cetera? What are ways that the government can reskill its workforce?
That's a really exciting agenda, and I think it offers a lot of opportunity for people to propose real innovations in the space. If someone is thinking about submitting a proposal, what are the key logistic things you want them to know about?
Thanks, Terry. So our current round is open until July 15th. The research agenda is available at businessofgovernment.org, our website, and you'll see it at the top of the page. We really look for proposals that, A, are well written, because that's how we know that the researcher is going to write a good report. B, that there's a good research methodology. It could be a case methodology, it could be literature review, it could be some sort of a focus group or survey, but it really has to be strong and empirical. Also, we look for a methodology that says, here is the way we will develop actionable, practical recommendations. Because in every report the center puts out, that's really the coin of the realm in terms of how we make sure the report is relevant, so a government leader can pick up the report and hand it to his team or his partners and say, let's go do this.
Well, I know many of the reports from the past rounds have had real impact, and they've been referenced and used. And so we'll look forward to hearing the results from this round when you get the papers and come back and share them with us.
Thanks so much, Terry. And one last point I'd make is that we are also looking at research that cuts across all 5 topics. How do you think about the government as a strategic enabler at a high level? And we talked about that as well in the report. So don't just think that we're thinking in silos. We really are looking for integrated approaches to improve the whole of government.
Back to those interlocking rings.
Mm-hmm.
I've been speaking with Dan Chenok. He's the Executive Director of the IBM Center for the Business of Government. Dan, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Terry. Pleasure to be here.
We'll post this interview along with a link to the Center's research announcement at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts. Still to come, what happens when the agency's secretary starts reviewing grants and contracts? This is the Federal Drive with Terry Gerton on Federal News Network.